Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
December the 7th, and we come to a pivotal passage in Daniel chapters 8 through 9 today. There's a lot of details here in Daniel 8 through 9. Those details are very important, and unfortunately we won't be able to discover some of the details, but we will at least mark them so that you can then go for further exploration. But our desire, remember, is just simply to let the Word of God wash over us, and so we'll do our diligence to ensure that that happens and not get bogged down in too many details. But notice right away in verse 1, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after that which appeared to me at the first. Now, this is important for us because this is a historical time marker. This lets us know when, historically, Daniel is making this prophecy. This is the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar. A vision appeared to me. And let's look at the vision then. I raised my eyes and saw, and behold, a ram standing on the bank of the canal. It had 2 horns, and both horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram charging westward and northward and southward. No beast could stand before him, and there was no one who could rescue from his power. He did as he pleased, and he became great. So here again is another beast of the field having dominion. A dominion that was forfeited by humanity has now been turned over to the beast. And so this beast is going to correspond with some of the other references. Remember from chapter 2, we saw a statue and different elements or different metals representing different kingdoms. And then of course we have beasts that represent different kingdoms. And here in chapter 7 and in chapter 8, again, we have another beast representing another kingdom. And so we have a little understanding of who this kingdom is as we progress down the text. But before we get there, notice in verse 12, and a host will be given over to it together with the regular burnt offering because of transgression, and it will throw truth to the ground, and it will act and prosper. Now look at verse 14. For 2,300 evenings and mornings, look how specific this is. For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary shall be restored to its rightful state. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. And many of us, when we're reading this, we say, yes, this is great. We do want to understand. And this is important for us as we think about biblical prophecy. The Bible is not filled with riddles and enigmas. It's hard to understand. Some passages in particular are more challenging than others. But the purpose of the Bible is not to just give us some riddle or puzzle. No, it's written so that we may have understanding. And here Daniel is saying that he wants to understand. And behold, there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, and it called, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, understand, O Son of Man, look at that beautiful title, that the vision is for the time of the end. Now that's important. It's not just a vision of the future. It's a vision of the eschatological, that is, end of time. And when he had spoken to me, I fell into a deep sleep. Verse 20, as for the ram that you saw with the 2 horns, these are the kings of Media and Persia. And look at verse 21. And the goat is the king of Greece, and the great horn between his eyes is the first king. As for the horn that was broken in place, which 4 others arose, 4 kingdoms shall arise from his nation, but not with his power. Now this is incredible. Here Daniel is saying that there's going to be a king of Greece who is going to take over the world. And of course, if we may take aside just for a moment, dig into the details just for a minute, this king is of course historically named Alexander the Great. And here Daniel is years before there was even a man named Alexander, even a man before his daddy was named in Macedon. Here is this Daniel prophesying from Babylon the rise of the Greeks and the conquest of Alexander the Great. Now look at chapter 9. Let's move here. We sort of have to move quickly here. Chapter 9 is a passage that deals with, of course, Daniel seeking hope in the midst of difficulty. Just to point out a couple of things, verse 9, to the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness, for we have rebelled against him, and have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our God by walking in his laws, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets. And of course we have at verse 13 a reference to the law of Moses. But in chapter 9, the highlight of chapter 9 has to do with this Daniel's 70 weeks. Now there's a lot of ink that's been spilt over the 70 weeks at verse 24. But the main thing to remember is that in chapter 9, and this chapter is so different, in chapter 9 we have the death of the Messiah. The Messiah is cut off. And so let's join this then. At verse 25, the Messiah is introduced. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the word to restore and build Jerusalem to the coming of the anointed one, there's our key word, a prince, there shall be 7 weeks. Then for 62 weeks it shall be built again with squares and a moat, but in a troubled time. Now, the Messiah is introduced. Now, look at what happens as soon as the Messiah is introduced. Verse 26, and after the 62 weeks, an anointed one shall be cut off and have nothing. And so here we have the Messiah. He's introduced in one verse, and then he's cut off in the next. And it's just a wonder then why we wonder, for example, that Jesus, his life and ministry only is revealed to us in a 3-year period. And here in this wonderful exchange between a verse, we see the brevity of the ministry of the Messiah on this earth. And that's captured well between one verse and the other. But let's look at 3 John then. There's a lot of details there. I know you're going to have a lot of questions and enjoy looking at Daniel, and especially in Daniel's 8 and 9, but there's more beauty to come in tomorrow's reading, but we'll get there tomorrow. But for now, let's look at 3 John. And remember, this is just one letter. So when we say 3 John, we don't say 3 John 1 because there's only one chapter. We just simply say 3 John 2, 7, whatever verses we're going to look at. But let's look at 3 John 2. Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be in good health as it goes well with your soul. And so here's the apostle telling us it's good for us to have a desire and of sentiments and well-being for others. Look at verse 7, let's look at verse 3. For I rejoiced greatly when the brothers came and testified to your truth, as indeed you are walking in the truth. And then John says this verse that was written over our wall of pictures, Mama's house, and she had us and my brother and me. It was this verse, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. And for all of us fathers and mothers, aunts and uncles, cousins, or have any children in our life and family younger than us, then we would say the same, that there is no greater joy than to hear that our children are walking in truth. And how appropriate is it that John says this at 3 John 13, I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with a pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we talk face to face. That's a good way for us to end today. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends, each by name. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.